It is done unto you as you believe.
What's that even mean?
This idea of belief,
Let's go back 2,000 years ago.
the foundational kind of unit of action.
They are looking for love and support.
The master teacher himself, Jesus the Christ.
Would you ever say to that person,
Just the faith.
it is done unto you as you believe?
That's what did it.
Why it's important. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Truth Be Told. So this month we're taking a closer look at common spiritual phrases and trying to figure out what do they even mean. So tonight we're tackling the saying, it is done unto you as you believe. Now, some version of these words are in the Bible many times. And to be exact, Matthew 9:29, it was referenced by our own man, Ernest Holmes. So belief is this interesting concept. It's the culmination of our layers of thoughts and experiences and perceptions, and all these things get swirled up into this one mighty ball of belief. And then that impacts how we see and live and move about our everyday lives. So with this understanding, it is done unto you as you believe takes on a whole new look. And it's really amazing how this simple phrase can open the door to a whole new way of walking around here on the earth. Now, don't misunderstand. This phrase is not a get-rich-quick scheme, but instead it kind of serves as our spiritual tire pressure gauge. So when our tires are flat, both literally and figuratively, we have to look no further than our particular belief, whether it's about a person or a circumstance or a situation. And this really gives us an explanation of how we may be perceiving or experiencing life at any given moment. So the invitation this week is to take a closer look at belief and how it shows up in our life. So it is done unto you as you believe. So tonight, we're going to take a look at what it is, what it isn't, and why it's even important. So sit back, relax, and enjoy Truth Be Told.
Done unto you as you believe. What's that even mean? Right? So there's a lot I want to cover here. First off, let's go back 2,000 years ago. Those words are never exactly like that in the Bible, but there's over 100 similar references we can talk about. So let's look. The book of Matthew has a ton of them, and they come from the master teacher himself, Jesus the Christ. So here we go. Matthew 8:13. Then Jesus said to the centurion, "Go, let it be done just as you believed it would." And the servant was healed at that moment. Matthew 9:20. Just then, a woman who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years came up behind him and touched the edge of his cloak. She said to herself, "If I only touch his cloak, I will be healed." Jesus turned, saw her, and said, "Take heart, daughter, your faith has healed you." And the woman was healed at that moment. Just the faith. That's what it did. That's what did it. Now, of course, belief, faith, this is a very deep and complicated thing. I've heard Wayne Dyer referred to it once. He was doing an interview and the news person said, talking about law of attraction, become whatever you believe. And he said, so you're telling me if I believe that I could become a linebacker for the Green Bay Packers, that I could do that? And Wayne Dyer said, do you really believe that? And of course the person had to admit, so there you go. Now, of course, it's not always that simple, but let's jump forward 2,000 years to placebo. Now, pretty cool that you can take a sugar pill, but these are in scientific trials. They tell the person that this is actually his new medication and it's going to cure what ails you. The person takes a sugar pill, believes that that's going to work, and lo and behold, quite often it does. And it gets even more cool when you look at placebo procedures. they actually do orthoscopic placebo tests where they make little pinpricks in the person's knee. And then when they wake up, they can see the little scars from an orthoscopic surgery that was actually placebo. They didn't do anything. And the person's knees, that one blows my mind. So that's all pretty cool, well said and done. Now, I always like looking at the pragmatic as well. So here's the thing, belief. If you believe that good things are going to come to you, you're going to kind of be on the lookout for it, and you're going to notice and take advantage of those times when it does, when you have the chance to grasp one of those good things. And if you believe that bad things are going to come to you, people are not going to treat you well, you're going to be on the lookout for that, and you're going to find things that support that idea. And there's a subtle energy that people put out. And if you believe underneath one way or the other, kind of put out a vibe. And when you're out there in the world thinking that everybody is out to take advantage of you, the vibes that you're putting off are going to kind of set that up. It's self-fulfilling prophecy. I'm sure you've heard of that before. Pretty cool. Now, all this really ties together. You can see pragmatic ways and other demonstrations. We know prayer has been proven to work in medical cases, but of course not all the time because it's subtle. There's many different things that are involved. Belief, depth, conflicting beliefs, all of that. It's all to be taken into account. We're going to learn a little more about that, about what it's not, because I definitely don't want to be giving the wrong impression. This is really more about a way of moving forward in life. That we want to make sure we're clear on. It's not about looking back. And I don't want to ruin what's coming up later. Now, the last thing that I want to get to, jumping back 2,000 years. And this is where I think the sky's the limit, and there really is something to this. Believe, and it is done unto you as you believe. Matthew 17:20. And Jesus said unto them, because of your belief, for verily I say unto you, if ye have faith as a grain of mustard seed, ye shall say unto the mountain, remove hence to yonder place, and it shall remove, and nothing shall be impossible unto you. It never hurts. The better your outlook is, better your chances are to receive that. Best possible scenario. Now let's learn a little bit more about what it's not, and then how to let it show up in our lives, or not show up.
I am equally blown away by the whole orthoscopic knee surgery thing. I've read about that before, and it's like, they what? Really? And some of them even, it sounds like they have better results with the placebo surgery than the real one, which is pretty crazy. So I think my takeaway from that is like there is a fairly complex depth to this phrase. You know, it's done unto you as you believe. So out of all of the things that you kind of covered in there, Chris, what do you think like the greatest takeaway from jumping into this week for you has been? What's like, if there were like one thing that we could lend everybody and say, this is the key, or this is the biggest piece for me, what do you think that would be? And you are muted. You're muted, brother.
Sorry, I think it's a little bit of what you alluded to, the idea of belief. That belief is so complex. I think of like the idea of when the movie The Secret came out and people got this, had never heard about this before. And they're like, oh, great. That's all you got to do is believe it. And, and they say it in their head, like, I believe this. And then, a month later, there's no Lamborghini in the driveway. So obviously this does not work. Not realizing like you're competing with 30, 40 years of built up thought and belief. And you may think you believe it, but you're just underneath in your subconscious. My guess is there's some other stuff that doesn't necessarily quite believe it. And so I think that's just a lot about it. Like it's a faith, it's a way of life. And it's not about like landing and manifesting something now. It's about just moving in that direction and seeing how life shows up in better and better ways. It's like Reverend Ryan said, it's not a get rich quick scheme.
Well, yeah. And I think, going along with the Lamborghini sort of thing, it's not like belief is not one singular thought. It's not like, wow, or it's not even like a want or a desire or a wish. But belief has this like, and I think you kind of like hit on it. It has this like kind of gut layered. It's just this layered thought. This is these layered patterns, kind of like, I don't know, like that direction. Kind of like when you go to sleep at night, we all kind of go to sleep in the same direction normally. So it's like, I sleep on my right side. I've done that for years.
Yeah.
And so I have built this belief that if I'm going to sleep better on my right side. Now, I think that's a little obviously simplistic, but it's not just a singular thought. It's just like a pattern of behavior over and over and over and over and over again. So I think that's, it's not like, oh, if I think and believe that I can do this, then this can happen. It's so much deeper than that. And I think that's the nature of faith, and that's the nature of belief. This kind of really layered understanding of our thoughts, layered understanding of our habits and our default type of ways of being.
Yeah.
Yep. Nailed it.
Pretty complex.
Yeah, it's not easy peasy.
Right, for sure. It is done unto you as you believe. What is it not? We've heard a little bit about what it is, and now it is just as important to know what this phrase is not. And I am just going to come right out and say it, that this phrase is not to be used as a weapon. I know that sounds a little crazy, but imagine someone you know has just gone through a deeply traumatic experience, and they are in a situation where they are looking for love and support. Would you ever say to that person, "It is done unto you as you believe"? Because this phrase in that context would be like saying to that person, well, you held this belief that this is possible, so you drew this towards you. You actually caused this to happen. That would be insane. And yet, this happens a lot more often than we would like to think it happens. Unintentionally, of course, without realizing what we are actually saying. We are, yes, in a movement of that inspires personal responsibility for life and actions. But I think that is proactive and not in the sense of reactive to things that are happening. We all have places in our lives where default thinking sneaks in. Collective consciousness makes the decision for us when we are not necessarily paying attention in that split moment, and things happen. Life does happen. And so to wield this phrase as a dagger into a wound is certainly not that loving support that our friend is looking for. So I'm going to go ahead and say that this phrase is actually not something that we say to other people. It is something that we hold near and dear to our own hearts for ourselves, but certainly not about people. It's probably not even something great to say in our minds about other people. But to use this as a barometer for ourselves, great. To use it as a means of support comes across quite backhanded. And I don't think we ever mean that when we say it. So let's agree in this moment to commit to not using this phrase towards other people, certainly not as an unintended weapon into someone's pain. So done unto you as you believe is certainly not a weapon, and it is something that we can use for ourselves, but not to place blame or shame on anyone else.
Dude, you hit on it. You hit on it big time.
I was nervous about that one, to be honest.
It's true. I think that, and it appears that this may have been done to you or someone that you care about. So I guess I guess I should have a question. I guess the question is: have you been the recipient of this or witnessed this, and how has it landed for the person or for yourself?
That's an interesting. I'm sure I shouldn't say that. I'm sure I have been the recipient of this, but I think the interesting thing about it is, there is almost like an indoctrination into new thought belief systems. And so when there are certain phrases that we hear so much, we don't necessarily pick up on the undertone of them, or in this case, I mean, there are certain phrases that are really microaggressions against ways of being or people with certain beliefs or feelings, right? So I can't actually remember a time where this was said directly to me, because it comes across as so normal when we don't realize it.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's kind of cringy too now that we're actually like highlighting it. Yeah. It's, wow, that really does sound that way.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is like, it was probably 4 or 5 years ago that I really started like keying into really specific phrases within Science of Mind, within CSL, within New Thought. And this was one of them, one of those things that like, do we really know what that means when we say it? And I mean, it's jargon from anything from like, when we say the word consciousness, do we really know what it means when we say it? Like, how are we using it? All the way through the spectrum to things that can come across literally the opposite, with the opposite intention that we think we mean it with. Right. So I can't recall a time that it's happened directly to me, but having since become aware of it, certainly can recall many times I've seen someone or heard of a time where someone has said it to someone else. And it's like one of those things where now you're aware of it. Like, it makes me gag and I almost want to throw up when I hear it. It's like, oh God, don't say that. Please don't say that. You don't mean it.
Right.
Yeah. It's interesting though. Chris, you're muted again.
Dude, how long?
We had a year of this, man. Come on.
We've been doing the live for a year.
That's true. Well, we've been
like week 3, right?
All right.
Oh no.
Yeah. Okay. I just noticing, like Teresa said it in the comment, we can do it to ourselves. I've noticed that. And I've also seen a really cringeworthy response to somebody that made a prayer request, and it came back and it just seemed very cold. The practitioner's response that just said, be aware of what you're thinking, because we create everything, and just kind of like ended. And it was, it was to the person that received the prayer request. It was new to them to be in the Science of Mind and the Center for Spiritual Living. And it took a lot of, kind of coaching and communication after that to kind of smooth it over and help them see in a different way. It was, it's painful to see that happening.
It is, right? Yeah.
And I think too, if we don't take a look at like some of like this, the deeper meanings and the impacts, then we kind of run the risk of having like bumper sticker spirituality, because that looks great on a bumper sticker, but it's kind of like, what does that mean? What is the impact? And I think that's the important part of this conversation is like, what does it mean? What it doesn't mean? What's the impact? Why is it important?
Yeah.
Because obviously belief is so important, but we have to be careful how we kind of phrase it or how we present it. And so I think that, although this phrase is very beneficial, it also has a time and a place too.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome.
For sure. So we're not quite done yet, but we want to take this moment to thank you for being here and watching with us. We are grateful for all the amazing support that we've been receiving, and we just want to continue doing what we do. So we have really the most amazing job in the world. It's so much fun to put all this out, to come together, create the content, really think about it, go deep into this wisdom, and then get the inspiration. But if you feel the call to pay it forward, we welcome your gifts. Simply hop on over to soulevolutioncollaborative.org and click on the donate button, and it is gratefully appreciated. Now let's get back to the show.
So we talked about what belief is. We talked about what it's not. So now I'm going to talk about why it's important. So this idea of belief is really the foundational kind of unit of action. It influences our thoughts, it influences our behaviors, it influences how we react to others or how we react to situations. And so it's really important as we move throughout our experience to be aware of the nature of belief. And oftentimes we're operating from these beliefs that are well below the surface, not even in our conscious awareness, that we have acted from these spaces over and over and over and over again. It just becomes second nature. And that's not a bad thing, but often we have to kind of take an inventory every now and then of our beliefs, of these deep-rooted things that are influencing how we move about the world. So for an example, and I'll kind of give you an example of the power of belief and how that can really impact our action and limit us sometimes in some ways. So I have this like intense belief, you may call it fear, but we'll just call it belief for the purpose of this conversation, that if I swim past a certain part in the ocean, a certain distance from the shore, that I will inevitably be eaten by sharks. Now, this is a very intense belief. Therefore, I spend most of my time in waist deep water. And if I have to be honest, it's more like ankle deep water, not for fear of water, but this belief that I am going to be mysteriously eaten by sharks if I pass some sort of depth into the ocean. So the invitation is to really take inventory of these beliefs that sometimes keep us close to shore, that keep us small, that keep us limited, that are from spaces of fear, lack, or limitation. And it really outpictures in our experience. So the invitation is just to become aware. If you look at these actions that we do over and over and over again, if we kind of backpedal and look, what is the underlying belief behind that action? Or what is the underlying belief behind that response? Often when I'm triggered by something, I'll get really curious about, wow, that really hit me funny. I wonder what that's about. And so I just take the time to really think about what that's about. And often it is rooted in some sort of belief, whether it's a belief about myself, or belief about the person that I may be interacting with, or belief about an experience or a circumstance. So our beliefs become these foundational units of action. They become the space from which we talk and walk and interact with the world around us. So it's really important to check some of these beliefs and hold them against what we know to be true, what we know to be true about ourselves, and what we know to be true about the universe. So the invitation this week is take a little belief inventory to really focus on those things that are really deep-rooted beliefs, and how these beliefs, whether perceived good or bad, how these beliefs show up in our life and how they impact our actions. And then knowing that we have the power to gently reshape those beliefs. And in that reshaping, we can actually reshape our experience. So that's taking the phrase, "It's done unto you as you believe," and putting a little action behind it. And yes, I'm giving you a little homework, but just be really curious about your beliefs. And you might be surprised what you find.
Nice. I like that, Reverend Ryan. Now, about my homework. How do I do that? How do I take inventory?
Hey, that's up to you, dude. That's up to you, dude. Um,
Right?
we all got our own work to do, man. We all got our own work to do. Usually, but to answer your question, sort of, because usually, like how I recognize that there's areas that I need to do inventory is if I go about the day and I am just irritated and triggered by a ton of things throughout the entire day, instead of saying, man, what are these people's problems? Then I really stop and say, wait a second, what's going on here? And that's when I stop and say, okay, what is that about? And, you can examine and re-examine and analyze every circumstance and every interaction. But I think when we get those periods of times or those situations where we're, being triggered by the same types of things, or those are kind of opportunities or red flags to say, hey, maybe you need to explore or be curious about what's going on in this situation. And so for me, that's my red flag, when I need to kind of take an inventory of my beliefs, or the things that are underneath my reactions.
Yeah, I what I really like about that is it makes it way easier to see, especially when there are like reoccurring things. Like when we're paying attention to how life is happening, when we start to see like that one person who's like reoccurring, but in different people, like that one personality that shows up again and again, and we're like,
it's like dating the same person with different hair. I mean, it's like
right?
the same. Not that I've ever done that.
No, of course you haven't. No. But yeah, it's like, then we can really start to dig into those like detailed, what are those beliefs? Like what makes me draw this person into my life again and again? What's behind that? And I the way, Ryan, the way you talked about this really just made my brain go there, like go into that, like, yeah, to take inventory, to really like look at what's up, look at how it's showing up, and then look at how we can dig into that and see, we really start to notice things about ourselves. It's kind of cool. Can be dirty, but it's cool.
Well, yeah, for sure. And I think too, like when we had this conversation around belief, often we have this like, well, let's, examine our limiting beliefs. And it's like, always we're looking at that. But there are so many things that we do and act in the world that are great. They're based on amazing beliefs. They're based on beliefs in oneness and belief with our connection with the universe. So I think also looking at those areas, so looking at the power of belief in those areas really empowers us to say, wow, I see belief showing up in amazing ways in these areas. And it kind of gives us, empowers us to maybe infuse some of that energy in some of the areas where we would like to see a shift. So I think sometimes we always talk about our limiting beliefs and things of that nature, or especially the saying, it's done in you to use you believe. Sometimes that's amazing. Actually, a lot of times that's amazing. But oftentimes in spiritual communities and spiritual conversations, we tend to look at those beliefs, a lack of limitation. But like I said, there are amazing beliefs. People are doing amazing things in the world.
All the time of the day where something is not bothering us.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I mean, belief is a great. It's a power. It's really our power. It infuses us with that.
Yeah.
It's also nice to not be eaten by sharks.
Yeah. Right. Some of those beliefs are like important.
Yes, they are safety features for sure.
Yeah, don't swim far out with the sharks.
No.
I'll tell you that.
Don't do that. Ernest says no.
Awesome. I want to click on that one again. We'll get this down sometime with these transitions. Awesome. Well, thank you all for being here. I hope you learned something about what you believe, if not, at least something about what we believe. And hopefully you can take this phrase, "it is done unto you as you believe," into your life in a new way. And so thank you for spending this time with us, this quality time with us tonight. We have enjoyed it. If you would like to explore this topic a little further, you can join us in conversation on Thursday night It is an amazing opportunity to delve further into the week's topic, answer questions, and really just be together in a truly transformative experience. The Soul Evolution Collaborative is supported and made possible by people like you. So if you would like to help out, financially support this mission, you can find the donate button at soulevolutioncollaborative.org. All donations are tax deductible and greatly appreciated. To stay up to date, visit the Soul Evolution Collaborative website, soulevolutioncollaborative.org, to sign up for email, news, and inspiration. We will see some of you Thursday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. And for everybody else, we will see you next week.